I was thinking about what Duane had wrote in one of the new books about drugs, and I'm on the Nubook 7 right now, and it talks about the werewolves and the vampires as a very real place that people that don't pay attention to the guidance of not doing drugs in their lives, they have to go through that experience where it's a terrible experience to be in. And with the werewolves and the vampires that had chosen to live that kind of lifestyle without any help from the guides, just have to experience that. And seems like without some guidance that is important to a person, they won't change. They will continue to just take the drugs that are available, that are being put out massively in so many ways. All these drugs, people, sounds like the majority of the population practically is taking some form of a medication. They call it drug, and some are so strong, it seems like, and like they talk about that fentanyl being like many times stronger than heroin or morphine or all that. And I do see people that they have attitudes, or about, you see and hear about the road rage and all these things, and I kind of think that has a lot of connection to the drugs and alcohol lifestyles that told to the people that, drink alcohol and you have a good time, and take these drugs and you'll feel better physically. But when we get this view of where it leads to be with vampires and werewolves, and I guess that there isn't any coincidences. That was lessons that had to be experienced or were chosen to see what it was like. But it does seem like that's part of the effects on all the humans, an awful lot of the humans right now, is the drugs and alcohol, how it affects their lives, their experiences. I'm very thankful that I give credit to Paul Twitchell that my life had been changed a lot from my drinking habit and my amount of certain drugs that I was involved with in my life. But I read his Expedia at that time, like in 2010, I guess it was. And I'd smoked cigarettes all my life from very young, even preteen, and smoked the marijuana for many years and experimented with many different drugs and stuff. And then Paul was saying that to soul travel, I guess it was called, to see what it was like to be out of the body. You couldn't take drugs and you couldn't drink alcohol and you couldn't smoke cigarettes and stuff. And somehow his words had enough power or effect on me that it just flipped a switch, and that was the end of my drinking and smoking and use of drugs, just because of what Paul had presented in his book. So I do see that I would be an example for many that are on the alcohol and drug lifestyles, with cigarettes and everything, that they can decide if they really think there is a better choice to experience. People can break those bad habits or whatever it's called, or hard lessons, with a little guidance. And I guess it's the education too of the outcome of their habits of drinking and doing the drugs and things, where it leads, the effects. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention the drugs and alcohol and what Duane had wrote about in the Nubook 7 about the werewolves and the vampires.
Yeah, I was listening to you on the part where Duane talks about the fellow that was bit by a werewolf. He was a good man, basically. I think he's the guy who had a transportation business. And Duane and Ursula visited him and were talking to him. He was bit, whether it's bit by a drug or alcohol or bit by a werewolf. it you know, it gives you another viewpoint, but it's still your intent. He still had a choice. It's a tough position, but he still has a choice to wake up to something more. We all do. We watched the movie Wolf with Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer the other night. Jack Nicholson was bit by a werewolf, so he got to experience another position. And it's interesting. There's another fellow, James Spader. He got bit too, became a werewolf, but it was their original intent, or they talked about it as like one guy was kind of an evil, like a kind of a rotten person, James Spader, and Jack Nicholson was sort of so-called good guy. So it was their original kind of character that in the end, even though they were werewolves, they still kept that part of themselves. Or in other words, your intent. No matter what kind of body type you are, it's your intent that carries it through. In the movie, Jack and Michelle got bit too, Michelle Pfeiffer, so she became a werewolf. So in the end, she destroys James Spader, the bad werewolf, and they go off into the forest together and live happily ever after as werewolves. Different body types, but this is in the movie. But no matter your body type, it's your intent. Duane says, know your intent. People don't know their intent. So that's really important to bring that up and work from there. No matter what position you are or what body type you're in. You could be a cat or a seagull, werewolf, human, anything, alien. Everybody's got their viewpoint there, and we're all here to wake up something more. So intent has to be established. Okay. Would anybody else like to share? Kevin, do you have anything else? Would you like to take over for a bit?
Yeah, there was actually a real side experience somewhere down the line that I'll be sharing on a UK Skype where I visited what seemed to be a werewolf theme park, which was quite interesting. And I put it in far more detail in that, but just briefly, it was rather strange, a little like Westworld, I suppose, except instead of the robots where people could come along and abuse them and make use of them however way they wished, sort of thing, and interact with them. Instead, it was werewolves, and it was very much as though these werewolves had been captured from somewhere, put in this theme park, and were there pretty much for these paying guests to hunt and various other things. And it was very curious as well, because just like in Duane's book with Alexander the Werewolf, all these werewolves were very sentient as well and had the capability of speech and communication, though here they had been very heavily drugged and sedated, so they still represented a danger and could still bite people and transmit lycanthropy to them, but they were drugged to the extent that they were far easier to avoid and not quite so dangerous. But I find it quite interesting in the movies as well, where they are certainly promoting and marketing werewolves and vampires as almost like a good life choice, almost. They certainly are making them almost seem glamorous in a way, particularly the vampires. If you remember some of the original vampire movies with I can't remember, the early 1920s movies where the vampires used to be very hideous in their appearance. Then you go through the years and they become more and more glamorous to the point where they're almost considered sort of a step up from a human vehicle. And so and again, the same thing applies where people place their focus and their intent and their attention, and particularly if they have something marketed as being a benefit in some way or something that they feel they would like for themselves, and they very much are cause and affecting themselves into those possible life positions. And as most vampires and werewolves tend to lurk in the lower astral, a lot of these people find they'll be marketing and ployed to end up in these body forms, but actually be a regression in a way. So it won't actually be a more advantageous body form, because they'll find themselves not only in the lower astral, but also in a body form that is sort of considered a sort of like an awareness back step, I suppose. A bit like the reptilians, where Duane was saying their body form and some of these other alien forms, although they are remarkably intelligent and have all this technology, they don't have the same awareness capability as the human vehicle, as though as an individual goes through their process through creation, as their awareness increases, they'll assume more and more the body type that is a reflection of that awareness, and it does seem that the human vehicle is one step awareness speaking beyond the reptilians, even though the human race are subservient and dominated by them.
Alexander had been very bad to humans before he was in that moving business in a previous life. Said so. That was the effect. He's been a slave trader. He was very brutal and what we call evil, I guess. So he ended up having to have the effects of what he caused on the experience as a werewolf.
Yes, it's like Duane was saying, individuals who are very abrasive in what they decide in their life choices, they tend to find themselves becoming reptilian, which is very indicative of which very much indicates that the reptilian is evidently a vehicle that expresses a sort of lower form of awareness than the human, and even to the extent that were reptilian to continue to be even more abrasive still in their decisions and life choices, they can even find themselves regressing to more animal forms and be swamp-dwelling slug creatures and things like that. So it just goes on and on, really. People could find themselves, I don't know, I mean, potentially, I suppose, it could continue to the extent where if you chose the worst possible ideas and made the worst possible decisions, set the very worst causes in motion, the effects could be you could one lifetime come in to be regressed and find yourself as a rock or something, or a mineral.
I was just going to mention we have a big comparison of these vampires and werewolves and reptilians and compared to the real guy.
And Alexander, the fellow we're talking about in Duane's book, in this particular life, he was like a good guy, good man type of idea. But like you say, he had some karma to clean up. So, people that are like so-called good people, if they don't see beyond the karma idea, and they get zapped with their effects that they've created somewhere along the line. So this is what's so good about what we're doing, is we see through the karma. We don't have to deal with that in the way we do, but in a way we can get past it by, our intent and the focus on something real, something that makes sense, something you could say beyond the creation, cause and effect world, and just be in the now and be in the real universes, and from there just have a better position to work from, or to work is maybe not a good term to not work, but support each other from.